let us see this new year, given the behavioral pattern of those who, even though they are not God, but they behave as if they are God. And thank God that at least we survive to see a new year. And we'll just pray that, we continue to survive. Every day means a new year, if you understand. Being a pastor, you will understand what I mean.
I understand what you mean fully, sir. Someone said something on an article today. They were talking about what they call the oldest man in the world who died at 142 years.
Oh, wow.
And they said that, well, once you pass a certain age, that the chances of getting to the next age reduces by about 50%.
Yeah.
So every additional step you take, you'll be thanking God that you made it to the next one.
Well, yeah, I like to modify that, because in the past 2 years,
Yes,
I
sir.
have had the privilege and the honor to see at close quarters some people who have been over 100. And I kind of just wonder whether their prayer is not the other way around when they go to sleep, whether they actually don't pray when they wake up the following day to be at the gate of St. Peter, rather than, to see all these ugly faces around them. It's well, the good Lord has said it, that He's giving us 70 years, and that if by grace and by maybe prayers but we go beyond the 70 years, it's on our head. And believe me, those of us who are over 70 know exactly what that passage in the Bible means. So you can now imagine a man 140 or whatever it is, what his prayer will be. No. It cannot be to thank him for another new day.
Yes, those of us above 70, we know what you're talking about, sir.
Excuse me.
But, sir, I think it gives us a very good segue into the start of the conversation today. Because the older you get and the older the individual is that you're talking to, the more they understand what the world order was and to what we're now seeing starting to materialize. And I imagine that if I'd been sitting down talking to someone that was 130 years old, the person would be maybe remembering what the world used to be and what the world is now. Because when we look at some of the things that has happened from the time we went on break to now that we're coming back, they were somewhat unimaginable. But now we've seen them. Now I'm talking specifically about some of the things happening in Iran, some of the things happening in Venezuela, some of the things happening in Greenland. But let's start with Iran, sir, and get your reactions to what is happening in Iran and some of the rhetoric that we've seen coming out of the United States about going in there. Let's start from there, and then we make our way gradually to some of the other topics.
Yes. Well, at the break of the Second World War, a British, well, I don't know whether British Minister of Defense or anyway, one of the European leaders said we are switching off the lights all over Europe. Only God knows when we will see it back again. And I can imagine how he felt when he witnessed the events that led on to his saying that. Each time one sees the back and forth between Iran and Trump, I won't say between Iran and the United States, because I cannot for the life of me believe that this is the same country I first went to in 1962. A country that goes around bullying everyone, friend or foe alike. I just can't believe it. And specifically, I just wonder, will Iran still be around by the time I wake up in the morning? You know, what is going on in Iran or the state of Iran is not a pleasant one. So don't let us get ourselves into some feeling of either admiration for the protesters or condemnation for the regime of Ayatollahs. Again, I recall, at least I was still young enough at that time. I still remember Ayatollah Khomeini coming down the staircase of the Air France that brought him in from exile in France. And I remember the demonstrators who were yelling death with the Shah, death with the Shah, and welcoming the Ayatollah Khomeini, kissing his feet, kissing the ground he was walking on. And I sit in front of the television now and watch almost a replay of the same thing that makes me wonder, wait a minute. I mean, have I accidentally put on the video and rewound it? It's just that instead of the Shah, you are looking at the Ayatollah. And instead of death to the Shah, you are now hearing death to the Ayatollah. You come on with some sense of confusion. The regime of the Ayatollahs have not dealt Iran a good hand. But at the same time, when you hear Trump saying if you deal with the demonstrators, he's going to come in and the regime will regret it because of the heavy hand with which it's going to deal. Again, who you ask yourself, yes, there is this saying of our great-grandfathers, the hawk comes in to grab the baby chickens, and you, the owner, you get so angry, you get your cutlass, and they will say, deal with the hawk first before you deal with the baby chickens as to what were they doing actually outside to expose themselves to the hawk. What is first of all, who gave the United States, who gave Trump the authority, whether under international law, the Charter of the United Nations, or any of the post-World War II convention that we have? Who gave Trump the authority and the power to dictate to Iran how Iran should run itself? But at the same time, because the Ayatollahs, the regime of the Ayatollahs is one that has dealt Iran a bad hand, you kind of wonder whether the right to protect, which is a convention, is not one. It's one that came into being in order to deal with dictators, in order to deal with governments and authorities who are marching on human rights and the right of people to certain, to certain rights that had been accumulated since the Second World War. So in a way, it's left me confused in the sense that I wish those demonstrators in Iran will survive, will succeed, will get rid of the Ayatollahs. But at the same time, I am not one to embrace Trump acquiring to himself or to the United States the right to march into any country and dictate to them. In fact, the interesting thing is to look at the domestic scene in the United States. The demonstrations in the United States against ICE, the threat of Trump to invoke the power to send in troops, active American troops, onto the streets of the United States to enforce himself. And you kind of ask, what's the difference between Iran and the United States, or Iran and Trump, between the Ayatollah and Trump? What is the difference? And I wish, it would be a good thing, honestly, for us to discuss this. Not just because you could tell from the way I'm talking that, frankly, my mind is not settled as to where do I stand on this. Definitely, I'm not on the side of the Ayatollahs, and definitely, I'm not on the side of Trump. So, I mean, what do we then do? What do we do?
Sir,
Do
let me ask you this question differently, sir, from
yes,
what you've said. You've tried to make the distinction between the United States and Trump, and that's fair enough. Would the United Nations intervening in Iran have been a more legitimate route to have taken?
if the United Nations had done so, uh, that's just wishful thinking, by the way, because you and I know that um, the power of the veto has hamstrung the United Nations from getting involved in situations where one or two of the superpowers have become involved. And definitely in the case of Iran, uh, Russia and China are on the side of Iran, and the United States is against Iran. But for the purposes of debate, discussion, if the Charter of the United Nations had been worded in such a way that the United Nations had been given the authority to intervene in a matter like what's happening in the United Nations, I mean, in Iran, that would have been acceptable, because that would have been a reflection of the world's thinking as to what should be the position of righteousness. But if, because we are now talking about probabilities, if the UN had had that authority, definitely the UN will also have come down clobbering on the head of the United States for a lot of the things the United States had done or is planning to do.
Now, this is not the first time that Iran would have protests to the extent that they seem to be having it now. What makes this one different?
No, what makes this one different is the President of the United States ascribing to himself the right and the authority to intervene, to put a stop to the authority of the Ayatollahs to control their own internal processes. Definitely, you and I know, each time Iran boils over and there are demonstrations on the street, the regime reacts by hanging its own people. First of all, it exercises, it chooses the right to execute people, to suppress the demonstrations, and then it picks on some of the demonstrators in a brutal way to hang them in order to suppress the demonstrations. That's what it normally does. But the difference this time is that Trump is saying, if you do that, I am going to come in. And well, we don't really know what Trump can do. I think again, let's debate this, because this is not like Venezuela. You cannot decapitate a theocracy and bring things to order. No, you can't. And you fly in to do what? Or you shoot down what? And to achieve what? If you decide to bomb Iran, you are going to kill a lot of the demonstrators who want change. I know that sitting in Washington is the son of the former Shah of Iran. But does he have any legitimacy? Will he be accepted by the Iranians? So if you go in, are you not just going to create more chaos? Iran is such a large country, a large territory, and the authority is so embedded that going in there, are you not going to just create more chaos? Not that the Ayatollah regime does not deserve to be changed. They deserve to be changed, but to be replaced with what? And I think this is some of us, this is when we think about what is going on there, this is the confusion we get into. What do you do? Do you have a blueprint? And is that blueprint feasible? You see, the demonstration on the street is not under one authority. There is no head to the demonstrators. So if you remove the Ayatollahs, well, how about if you've ever seen the strength of not the army, because the army itself is there, but there's the alternative military in Iran, which you are going to have to put American troops. How many of them are you going to bomb before you kill all of them? And before the street, let me put it, takes over. We simply don't know. And I thought it was rather irresponsible for two things, for two people. The son of the Shah to have said, go onto the street, seize government institutions, when he is sitting in the safety of Washington. And also it was irresponsible for Trump to have said, continue the demonstrations, help is on its way, when actually you haven't thought out the processes. So in a way, it's but maybe, I mean, we will have to do a stratification, honestly, of what is involved. One is whether Trump has the authority to intervene. And if he does, what is the nature of that intervention, and to achieve what? If we could, maybe like peeling the onion, peel layer by layer, maybe we will get somewhere. Or at the end, the whole of the onion will go and will still not be any better off.
Okay, let me peel that onion one more step, and we look at another angle. About 6 months ago, the rockets were flying, the missiles were flying between Israel and Iran, and the U.S. was there to support Israel. Um, with what President Trump is saying now, is this an American battle that Israel will then be compelled to support? And does it then take us back to where we were last year, April and I think October, when we had those 2 rounds of exchange of fire between Israel and Iran?
Well, the answer to your second question, or to a question you haven't asked, is Israel has its hands deep into whatever the United States is planning to do in Iran. Not for the sake of the Iranians, but for the sake of the Israelis. Netanyahu may see what Trump is planning to do as job unfinished, and that this is his opportunity to finish that job. That's number one. But number two is the first conflagration between last year's conflagration between Israel and Iran had a definite purpose: to weaken Iran, even if possible to decapitate Iran. But I don't think it was to change the regime in Iran. The one this time has been couched in terms of regime change, even though what constitutes regime change in the case of Iran is what is not spelled out. And it's what I've been trying to point out, that regime change in Iran is a difficult proposition. It's one thing to simply say, I'm going to defeat an administration militarily, or I'm going to defeat an administration by removing its nuclear capability. There is a specificity to the objective. But it's another thing when you don't define what your objective is. How do people who are not carrying weapons seize government instructions when 10 soldiers can kill 100, if not more, demonstrators who are seizing maybe a television station, or who are even seizing a prison yard? How does that, achieve anything? It's going to take probably 10 times the size or the number of the demonstrators to, if you like, overwhelm overwhelm the security forces of the Ayatollahs. And one thing really we mustn't forget is that a study of revolutions will show that there is that critical point when enough people, enough demonstrators have been killed that the killing itself overwhelms the security forces, that they throw down their guns and join the demonstrators. And that's when the revolution takes over. And that's what happens when they were fighting the Shah, before the Ayatollah then flew in from France. They had killed so many, they had jailed so many, they brutalized so many that actually the security forces changed sides and joined the demonstrators. I don't see that happening in the present state of Iran.
Let's look.
Even if Israel joins the United States to achieve what?
Let's look at another angle of this because if we go back to a few months back, we woke up to the news that the U.S. had bombed some terrorist sites in Nigeria. And then we had the issue in Venezuela. And then we have what's going on in Iran with the readiness of the United States, of President Trump, to align with the distinction you've drawn there, to go into Iran and to help to sort out the issue. It becomes clear that President Trump seems to be pursuing a foreign policy objective that says, if I think it's in the interest of the United States, I'm going to go into that country and I'm going to do whatever it is that I feel is the right thing for us to do in that country. How do you break down that kind of approach? Because he did it in Nigeria. We were not the first, but he did it in Nigeria. Venezuela was a worse one because he actually went in and he picked up the president of the country, flouting all sovereignty laws that could be there. And now he's ready to go into Iran. Some people would say, well, if you look at all those countries, there is oil involved there, and maybe that's what he's after. How would you explain this footprint that the US is leaving in these countries?
I'm sorry, I don't buy into the oil is the objective of Trumpicana. I think that it is power for the sake of power that is driving Trump. He has no respect for the law, whether domestic or international. Two, he has no respect for institutions. The only respect he has is his own feelings. He wakes up in the morning, or maybe he wakes up in the middle of the night and says, who am I going to bump today? What law am I going to overthrow today? How, as Trump, am I going to get into the front page of the world newspapers today? I think those are the questions he asks himself. And then he goes ahead, because in a way, this is the way I will interpret the regime of what is that he started this administration with. When
Make America great again?
Sorry?
Make America great again?
Well, yes, make America great again, but how? He went after Canada, he went after Mexico, Then he went after India. He went after the whole world
On the tariffs, yes.
on the tariffs, the
Yes.
tariff syndrome. Friends and foes alike. So whether they have oil or not, whatever it is, he simply wants to impose a no Trumpicana on the world, and then it's happy. Um, and then he declares victory and leaves. Or since everybody now knows that it is just the use of power that entices him, then you don't want to be at the end of the use of that power. I mean, look at Europe. They're also scared of him. That they've tried to make sure that they don't provoke him. Because provoking Trump is asking for trouble. Unless, and you see, let me use an illustration. About 24 hours ago, China issued a statement as it looks like Iran was boiling. China said, we don't believe that any country has the right to interfere in the internal affairs of another country. But we also don't believe that power is the way to resolve matters. Instead, we believe in diplomacy, and we are prepared to use positive diplomacy to help resolve matters. Now, when I used to write thesis as a postgraduate student, I believed in interpretation of every word that turns up in the statement of a government. Of course, not every government. I mean, there are some governments who simply believe in a braggadocio, which was what Venezuela was doing. I recall January last year, exactly a year ago, when Trump was sworn in as president. And I think, I can't remember which television station I appeared on. And I was asked to advise that how should our president in Nigeria deal with a Trump as president of the United States. And I said, whatever you do, don't provoke him. Whatever you do in reaction to whatever he does to you, don't provoke him. Now, people like Venezuela were, you can't take home Trump, and yet you were issuing statements as if you could do that. Colombia has now learned its lesson. It has toned down its own rhetoric, even though it was Trump that was provoking Trump. Anyway, I've digressed a bit. So I used to do an internal analysis of every statement issued by a government. Now, when I sat down, and I listened to the statement by China, the first statement China we issued on the American Iranian conflagration. I was, impressed by the choice of words. Yes, we don't believe that any country has the right to intervene and dictate to another country. That was aimed at the United States. We believe that diplomacy is the right way to go about resolving conflicts. That was aimed at Iran. And we, China, we are ready to use positive approaches to help resolve matters. In other words, if it comes to a war or it comes to the use of weapons, don't expect we, the Chinese, to come in on the side of whoever it is that may be right. We don't believe in it. That to us is not the positive way, So when China said that today, I believe it was also a message to the United States that it was like giving the United States a free hand. If you're going to go to war, fine, as long as, because 3 days before then, China has issued a statement: we will not fire the first weapon, but if you do, we will not be the last one standing. So in a way, 3 days ago, it has made its position clear that if China is the object of the aggression, it is not going to lie down and take it. But if it is now today, maybe in clarification of what is said 3 days ago, but if it is one of our, what will you call it? If it's one of our allies, we believe it should be diplomacy that should, do this thing. So in a way, we are in a position where we are at a crossroad where there's nobody who can checkmate the United States, who can checkmate. We can only try to pray that we survive the 3 days left of Trump, that we survive it, and hopefully, and we should know by the end of this year whether the Democrats will come back or not. When they have the midterm elections, you can see the way the United States is going. But Trump has no respect for law. He believes only in power. And you tell me, which country is the most powerful country in the world today?
So there's something that struck me from what you raised there in terms of how to deal with Trump. And it's with regards to what is happening or what has happened from a Nigerian standpoint. Because there was that really blowing hot, we're going to do this with Nigeria, they're not dealing with this issue. And all of a sudden, if some of the reports that I'm hearing here that the US may have provided some military support to the Nigerian forces, and those aggressive words have kind of been toned down a little bit towards Nigeria. Is there something we can learn from how Nigeria is dealing with Trump compared to how Venezuela dealt with Trump. Because again, you just mentioned that point now that you said Nigeria should not confront Trump. And it seems that maybe they've averted the aggression of Trump to a degree. What would you say Nigeria is doing right?
No, what we are doing right is to shut up the members of the administration. That's, I mean, the Tinubu administration, who were behaving and talking as if they can take on the United States, and were encouraging President Tinubu to either ignore him or to behave in such a manner as to ask him to do his worst. Fortunately, Tinubu is trying to play a middle game. Number one, he's allowed the United States to go ahead and do the bombing in Sokoto. That's number one. Number two, and the Americans have said that will not be the last time they will intervene, that there will be other opportunities and that they will not hesitate to do that. That's number two. Number three, you could see the way and manner in which the Nigerian security forces have all of a sudden become energized. What they were not doing before. Nigerians had been asking, where are our security forces? Now they are no longer asking where our security forces are. Number four, the United States, Nigeria has, if you like, accepted the offer of the United States to help, to assist Nigeria in combating terrorism, jihadism, and what have you. And I don't know what you guys over there hear, but over here in Nigeria, we've noticed the scattering of the jihadists. Some have fled back into Niger, where they came from originally, but one arrow does not kill a flock of birds. So don't expect that one Sokoto run would put a stop to the activities of the jihadists. There are some of them who actually welcome what the United States has done, because they believe that, they will go to heaven and be accepted as having died in the cause of jihadism. And therefore, they will actually like to encourage the United States to do more bombing. And that is the way I interpret, again, a continuation of the activities of the terrorists. It's not going to stop within a few days, a few months. I even believe it may take about 18 months before they will actually come to the conclusion that they cannot take on the United States. I'm talking about the terrorists. And it's only then, I think, we can talk about the jihadists or the terrorists being beaten. So it's not that if you are going to interpret the interplay between Nigeria and the United States, I think you will notice that the behavior of the Nigerian government itself has changed considerably. compare with what it was last year. And that is in a way what I mean when I was saying, don't provoke him, even if he's provoking you. That's the mistake that this man had done, that this man did. Venezuela, he kept, if you like, if you see the way and manner he was talking, you will think, no matter what happens, he can take on the United States. Some of the biggest armada had been amassed on your border, the biggest naval ship America has. And yet, instead of offering, I mean, it's maybe, I don't know. And only the Americans know. Maybe it's true that he was telling the truth when he was saying that he was not in control of the narco traffic between in that part of the world, and that America was just giving a dog a bad name in order to hang it. But there are ways in which you could have said it. There are ways in which you could have behaved. That perhaps will have give you study a man's character, will have given Trump that opportunity to say, I won, without firing a shot. Like this oil we're talking about now. Maybe that's a deal. Trump likes deals. Maybe Venezuela could have made a deal, offer him a deal about offering him oil, Venezuelan oil at a discounted rate, and you go through the back door of diplomacy, people whom you think can talk to Trump. This what's his name in the man Ukraine, when you had that clash in the White House, immediately he learned his lesson that he's got to look for people who can talk to Trump and help get Trump on his side. And it worked to some extent. They should have learned a lesson from that. I'm talking now about Venezuela. Should have learned a lesson from that.
Yes, sir. One quick question, sir. I don't remember if it was the first term of Trump or when he was coming in the second term. But I do remember that you called it out on one of our sessions. And that was when President Trump was referring to some deadly weapons that America had, and hoping that they wouldn't have to use it. And the unconfirmed reports that there was some kind of sonic weapon that was used in Venezuela. How would you respond to that, sir? Do you see the US now suddenly taking on this, if true, the US taking on this mysterious military capability, again, bearing in mind that there had been, again, unconfirmed resources that the attack on Iran didn't really do the damage that it was supposed to have done, and Iran was going to very easily rebuild from the damage that they had done. Does this raid on Venezuela do anything to re-establish the military supremacy of the United States?
I asked myself a question, and I didn't like the answer I got from the Americans. How come no American serviceman was killed, no American asset was destroyed, and yet, well, we don't know, is it 80 or is it 100 Cuban soldiers were killed? The answer the Americans gave was that they had succeeded in bribing the soldiers, the Venezuelan soldiers who were guarding the Venezuelan president. All right. But they will not insult. They know the world will not accept that they also bribed Cuban soldiers. And that's why they were able to extract the president without the loss of one American asset. And so I have to then come to accept, to accept those who said, there are weapons that America use. I read that piece also about, is it gas that was used to decapacitate the Cuban soldiers? I read something like that. It wasn't too clear. But believe me, and recall what I said at the beginning of this, our interaction, that each morning when we wake up, we should thank God that we are still alive. I think that the United States, and before anybody accuses me of being anti-United States, let me add China to it. I'm not really convinced that these superpowers don't have some terrible weapons. I know Israel does, and I think we talked about it on this program when we were talking about the Samson syndrome, a weapon that Israel was prepared to use if it looks like Israel was going to be defeated in a military confrontation, that it was prepared to use, and that would destroy. Yes, Israel was going to be destroyed, but then so would the rest of the world also be destroyed. So honestly, I'm not certain in my mind that the superpowers don't have these weapons that, rather than they being the only ones who will be destroyed, they'll take all of us along with them. And that from time to time, they test these weapons in local conflicts that they are involved in, just to see. Or else somebody should explain to me. I can see somebody's hand up
I'll pick that in a minute, sir.
Somebody should explain to me why not one single American soldier will be killed, and yet 80 or 100 Cuban soldiers who are trained to a hilt will die in a confrontation with the Americans. Let somebody explain it to me.
Dr. Thomas, do you want to unmute yourself?
Okay, I've done that.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I just want to buttress what you said earlier when you were asking Prof. If it was during the first term of Trump or when he was about to come in, that he was talking about the humongous capabilities that the United States possesses. Well, what happened was that when it came in this second term, when it came in, and I think he was briefed by the security. That was when he made the statement. In fact, he said he was likely to hold a meeting between himself, Putin, and Xi Jinping. That look, the two of them, or in fact, the three of them, should not even bother to develop anything again. That what he has seen so far, what the capabilities the United States possesses, can destroy the world 100 times over. And I want to take that as the beginning of what I would call the Trumpian insanity. I think the power has boosted his ego, kind of, and he feels that, look, if he's so sure that truly the United States possesses the capabilities that can destroy the world over 100 times over, that is why he's acting like this. And I believe that the kind of effeminate posturing adopted by Xi Jinping and Putin is so shocking. And I want to believe that they know that Trump would have, what he was saying, they were sure that he was telling the truth. And so they were caught off guard. They don't even know till now how to respond to respond to his eccentricity as at now. Because the statement on Venezuela was very weak. And I know that during his first term, I believe, when he had problem with this same Maduro, the Russians were quick to go there. And then, the whole thing abated. There was no escalation. But this time around, I couldn't see the Russians. And then the Chinese, who were also beneficiaries of the oil purchase, in terms of the fact that they wanted to be collecting yarn, and then the BRICS and everything. It's so weak. I'm surprised. So I think that is behind his behavior, or let me say his attitude, or his behavior this time around. So I just wanted to chip in that. I believe there is no time to discuss the other issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, sir. I also think that Russia has been well depleted, that participating in any other thing would be a challenge for Russia. Festus Oshifeso, can you go ahead and make your contribution?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Professor. Happy New Year and happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
To answer what the professor's question as why didn't the US lose any lives when they abducted, kidnapped Maduro? I think I've been following a lot of independent news media here in the US where you have ex-CIA folks, ex-intelligence folks. They speak about the event in Venezuela. The CIA largely carried out that work. There's been a lot of payouts by top military officials in Venezuela. It wasn't a brilliance of the US military. The Cubans were just sold out there to die since too close to Maduro, basically sold him out. So that was largely CIA intelligence work that did that. It would also be very weak to say Russia or China are very affirmative, because it doesn't make sense for the Russians or the Chinese to get involved in a region that America's sphere of influence. So I think, logically speaking, the Russians shouldn't even get involved, because it's just going to be unwinnable for them to fight in a place that's so close to the US geographically. They don't really have the logistics to do much of assistance or help to the Venezuelans. And I think for China as well, their foreign policy has never been one of, I guess, intervening or countering the US in wherever they're fighting. They would talk, they'll give those rhetorics like they did when the US went to Iraq or Libya, even with Israel, Hamas, but the Chinese, they don't get involved in any wars that involves the US. So the posturing verbally is good, but they won't get involved. And I think the Chinese should just do well to just eat popcorn, and watch the US self-destruct themselves. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Femi Ojumo, can you please unmute yourself?
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you, Prof. Thank you, all the participants, for the excellent insights, Prof. I just wanted to flag up a point that Prof made earlier, and that's about the critical importance of diplomacy. Now, what we're witnessing in this saga is the Machiavellian approach, might is right. And Trump doesn't hide that. Okay? And as Prof said, Colombia started making some of these noises earlier, but they got the message and checked themselves. Now, last year, when the US intervened in the Russian-Israeli war, deploying B-52s and all that, strikingly, Iran was able to launch missiles against the US airbase in Qatar. Now, in the last 48 hours, Qatar has said that they do not want the US base to operate from there or to launch missiles against Iran. So my issue is, what does that make of the Abraham Accords, which Trump brokered in his first term? Because we're now seeing a shifting of the diplomatic tectonic plates with otherwise proactive allies of the US in the Middle East. Thank you very much, sir.
Prof, do you want to respond to that, sir?
Well, I didn't quite hear the last two sentences. If I understand it very well, and if I don't, please correct me. Is it that the Abraham Accord has actually not had any influence on the developments in the Middle East? Is that the question?
What I understood from the question, sir, was Qatar has said that the US should not use Qatar to launch any attack against Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And if that were the case, where does that leave the Abraham Accord that Trump brokered?
Okay, yes, now I get it. Well, the fact is, the way and manner, my own understanding is that the way and manner Israel carried out the Gaza war has made it impossible for any Arab country, whether a signatory to the Abraham Accord or not, to make any gesture or take any step to make it look like it was on the side of Israel, no matter how much they themselves thought that the Hamas were wrong to have done what they did in, I believe it was in October. And in order to buttress that point, I've been made to understand that actually the Hamas action in October was to prevent Saudi Arabia from becoming a signatory to the Abraham Accord. That was very close. That the relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia, due to the intervention of the United States, was making the Abraham Accord very attractive to the Saudi Arabians, And the belief of Hamas was that if Saudi Arabia were to become a signatory to the Abraham Accord, other Arab countries are likely to join in. That's what led them into that suicidal attack on Israel. So to some extent, there was a relationship between the Abraham Accord and what Hamas decided to do to head off the steps that Saudi Arabia was taking towards a favorable reaction to the Abraham Accord.
Ambassador Lewu, can you please unmute yourself, sir? Ambassador Lewu.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our professor for the insights he has really given to all of us on the various topics of today. And I would like to congratulate him, first and foremost, on his 85th birthday. I hope to join the 80th group, hopefully this year by April. And that's why I'm very happy that I'm joining the icons of the world, not only international affairs, but your personality is one that's well recognized, sir.
Thank you.
As regards the comparison you made with the Ayatollah who came in, Khomeini from Paris, and the Shah was thrown away, and now the reverse is the case where the current Ayatollah is now facing a similar problems of being thrown out by the demonstrators. I think it is a question of a change of circumstance, and a period. It's a question of a different of the era or the age in which we are compared to the time of the Shah. As it is usually said that no condition is permanent. Unfortunately, Iran has been in more of war than of peace since the Shah left. And I think the people are tired. They are tired of war all the time. And they want more freedom. Remember when the lady who didn't wear hijab was assassinated and the big problem started? I think this is the second stage. The next stage may be one that will really be a big revolution in Iran, where the old groups of Malams may face an extinction, from power. As for the U.S., which Akin, the moderator, mentioned that maybe the United Nations could be brought in to try and put some sort of brakes on the excesses of the U.S. president. You have already answered him that the veto power is the major obstacle. But I believe that even though Europe is weak, the Arab states that are so friendly with Trump will put a lot of pressure on him. And I think that is what has happened so far. I believe that, I may be wrong, that the various Arab states that are hosting the air bases of the US, quite a lot of them, more than 7 or 10 of them within that Persian region, wouldn't want any war to happen between the US and Iran. I think they are the ones that should put more pressure on Trump than even the United Nations, where Trump will use his veto power. The Arabs would also solicit the assistance of Europe, the Western world, to try and have a combined pressure on Trump to see that Trump does not interfere in the internal affairs of Iran in the way he had been orchestrating it. These are my points on these two issues, sir. I wish you more years of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's 17:20. I did not want to go past 17:20, so even though I can see a hand raised, Festus, you've already commented today. I will end the program now, but maybe next week you can bring the same point. We're a little bit way beyond time. Thank you very much there. Prof, thank you very much, sir. And to everyone who has been on the platform and those who are on YouTube, thank you for joining, and we'll be back again next week. Sir, I'd like to start with Greenland on next week and the impact of that and where that leaves NATO if Trump were to take some of his steps in that area as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.